Imagine a world where a single man rises from the harshest conditions, uniting warring tribes under one banner, creating an unstoppable force that will change the course of history. From the vast, unforgiving steppes of Mongolia, a leader emerges, destined to conquer, destroy, and reshape empires. His name? Genghis Khan. But who was this man really? A brutal warlord, a visionary strategist, or something even more complex? In this video, we dive deep into the rise of a legend whose shadow stretches far beyond the empire he carved, a figure revered and feared across centuries. The life of Genghis Khan is recorded in the secret history of the Mongols, a mix of historical fact and legend, believed to have been written in the early 13th century. Additional details come from later Chinese and Arab sources. Born to aristocratic parents, Genghis Khan was originally named Temujin, reportedly after a Tatar captive. While his exact birth date is debated, scholars suggest either 1162 or 1167. A legend from his birth foretold his future, as he was said to have entered the world gripping a blood clot in his right hand, an omen of the violence that would mark his life. Temujin's father, Yisuge, was a tribal leader. Early on, Temujin was promised in marriage to Borte, the daughter of another powerful Mongol leader named Day Sechen. However, before this alliance could take place, Yisuge was poisoned by a rival, leaving Temujin, then only 9 or 12 years old, unable to maintain control over his father's followers. As a result, Temujin and his mother were abandoned on the harsh Asian steppe, left to survive on their own. Despite the dire circumstances, they managed to eke out a living by foraging and using the land to their advantage. Temujin's hardships didn't end there. He was captured by a rival clan, possibly after a dispute in which he is believed to have killed his older half-brother Bekta, a figure who likely represented a competing branch of their family. Fortunately, Temujin escaped under the cover of night. Gathering a small group of loyal followers from his father's old allies, he sought refuge with Togril, the leader of the Karaite tribe, whom Yisuge had once aided. After this, Temujin was finally able to marry Borte, fulfilling the betrothal made years before. With his growing reputation for leadership and skill in warfare, Temujin soon secured victories over rival clans. His army expanded as he proved himself a formidable force on the battlefield. The conflicts were brutal, with one infamous rival boiling his prisoners alive in 70 cauldrons. Yet Temujin remained unstoppable, gradually uniting most of the nomadic tribes that wandered the vast Central Asian grasslands. These tribes, though composed of related clans, were often fiercely independent. Temujin brought them together through a combination of diplomacy, strategic marriages, generosity, and unrelenting force. Some conquered tribes were incorporated into his army, while others faced total annihilation. His courage in battle was legendary, and he rewarded bravery in his enemies, such as the warrior Jibi, who earned a place as one of Temujin's generals after he shot the horse from beneath Temujin during a cavalry charge. As Temujin's army grew in strength and size, he spent roughly 10 years defeating rival groups like the Tartars, Karayids, Naimans, and Merkids. In 1206, a significant turning point came when a Mongol confederation gathered for a grand council, known as a Kurultai, at the Kurulan River. During this assembly, Temujin was officially proclaimed the leader of the united Mongol tribes and received the title Genghis Khan, a name thought to mean universal leader. While the original Mongol spelling is Chinggis, the more familiar Genghis comes from medieval Arab sources who lacked the chi sound in their language. With his new authority, Genghis Khan's aim was not only to consolidate his Mongol power base, but also to harness the traditional Mongol skills of horsemanship and archery to conquer their longtime rivals and ultimately create an empire capable of overthrowing the wealthiest state in Asia, China. While it is unclear whether Genghis initially had such grand plans, this ambition would soon become a reality. Despite his rise to power, Genghis remained grounded in the traditions of his people, continuing to live in a large portable felt tent, or yurt, typical of the nomadic Mongols. Until Genghis Khan's empire began to flourish, the Mongols had never established permanent towns or villages. Instead, they roamed the steppes, shifting with the seasons in search of fresh pastures. However, the great Khan did not cling solely to the past. One of his notable innovations was to transform the previously oral Mongol language into a written one, adopting the script of the Uyghur Turks. This development allowed for the creation of a formal legal code known as the Yasa, which clearly outlined punishments for specific crimes among other legal provisions. Another key advancement under Genghis was the creation of a postal system that relied on horse-riding couriers. These couriers would relay messages swiftly across vast distances, stopping at well-placed stations where they could rest, eat, and change horses. This efficient communication network would prove invaluable during military campaigns when intelligence needed to be transmitted quickly. To secure the loyalty of his army and protect against the age-old rivalries that could arise from the traditional Mongol divisions based on tribes, Genghis reorganized his forces. He expanded his elite bodyguard unit, the Kesikton, from 800 men to 10,000. These guards were selected from the sons and brothers of his senior commanders, a strategy that ensured their unwavering loyalty. Later, the members of the Kesikton swore absolute allegiance to Genghis Khan, receiving special privileges when it came to the division of war spoils. Additionally, many members of this elite corps were entrusted with important administrative roles in the lands they conquered. With the Mongols now unified under Genghis Khan, their army held significant advantages over their larger and more powerful neighbors. The Mongols were master archers, using composite bows capable of long-range accuracy. Their soldiers were incredibly resilient, able to endure days of riding with little food or water. Their horses, though stocky, were agile and tough, capable of surviving extreme temperatures, making them essential weapons in their own right. The Mongol cavalry was divided into light and heavy units, and each rider typically had up to 16 spare horses, allowing them an unparalleled range of mobility. One of the Mongols' greatest strengths was their adaptability. They eagerly adopted the tactics and technologies of their enemies, using them to their own advantage. In addition to their legendary mobility, they quickly mastered other forms of warfare, including siege tactics and the use of gunpowder missiles and catapults. Initially adopting Chinese models, they later incorporated even more advanced versions from Afghanistan. This openness to foreign innovations became a hallmark of Genghis Khan's strategy, with his ministers and commanders hailing from as many as 20 different nations. Genghis Khan also excelled at exploiting divisions within his enemies, often using spies and merchants to uncover internal rivalries that could be manipulated to weaken alliances. The motivation of the Mongol soldiers was another key factor in their success. Mongol warfare had one primary goal: the acquisition of wealth. Commanders who led successful campaigns could expect to receive vast tracts of land to govern, while Genghis himself received tribute from rulers who were allowed to maintain their positions as vassals. With such incentives in place, the Mongol hordes were nearly unstoppable once mobilized. Genghis Khan's campaigns against the Jin state, also known as the Jurchen Jin dynasty, began in 1205, with further invasions in 1209 and 1211. During the 1211 invasion, Genghis sent two Mongol armies, each consisting of 50,000 men, to attack the Jin, who controlled much of northern China. Although the Jin could muster an army of 300,000 infantry and 150,000 cavalry, the Mongols' swift and unpredictable tactics proved that sheer numbers alone were not enough. Genghis Khan's strategy often involved the brutal sacking of a city, followed by a strategic retreat, forcing the Jin to retake the devastated city and contend with the ensuing chaos. This tactic was sometimes used multiple times on the same city. Another effective approach involved completely destroying a captured city, executing all its inhabitants, and then sending warnings to neighboring cities, promising the same fate unless they surrendered immediately. The Mongols also employed psychological warfare, using captured prisoners as human shields during battles. The devastation caused by the Mongol invasion was captured by the Jin official Yuan Hao Wen, who wrote a poignant poem describing the destruction. "White bones scattered like tangled hemp. How soon before Mulberry and Catalpa turned to dragon sands? I only know north of the river there is no life. Crumbled houses, scattered chimney smoke from a few homes." In addition to facing the Mongol onslaught, the Jin state was plagued by internal issues, including rampant corruption, natural disasters, and the assassinations of high-ranking officials, such as Emperor Fadi in 1213. These problems forced the Jin rulers to retreat south, where they were compelled to sign a peace agreement and pay tribute to Genghis Khan in 1214. While this agreement provided a brief respite, the worst was yet to come. When the Jin moved their capital further south in 1215, Genghis Khan interpreted this as a rejection of their vassal status, prompting another Mongol attack. In 1215, Genghis Khan launched a new campaign against the Tangut state of Xixia in northern China, repeating the raids he had first made in 1209. In a somewhat misguided move, the Chinese Song dynasty, instead of forming an alliance with the Jin to create a buffer zone against the Mongols, chose to ally themselves with Genghis Khan. This decision was influenced by the fact that the Jin and Song had been enemies since the previous century, with the Song even paying tribute to the Jin to minimize their raids. Over the next decade, the Mongols relentlessly attacked northern China, laying waste to around 90 cities between 1212 and 1213. Along the way, they incorporated disaffected or captured soldiers from both the Chinese and the Khitan, the latter being steppe nomads who had once dominated northern China and Manchuria. In 1215, the Song made a failed attempt to counterattack into Mongol-held territory, with Chinese General Peng Ai-pin being captured, a fate that befell his successor in 1217. That same year, the Mongols captured Beijing, and the city was left burning for an entire month. Even Korea wasn't spared, as a Mongol invasion force chased fleeing Khitans into Korea in 1216. By 1219, a Korean army had joined forces with the Mongols in campaigns against the Khitans. After a period of relative calm, the Mongols resumed their aggressive campaigns, attacking Korea again in 1232 and 1235, and launching another assault on China in 1234, finally bringing the Jin state to its knees. It was now evident that the Mongols wouldn't be satisfied until all of East Asia was under their control. The Song dynasty, exposed and vulnerable from the north, was in a weakened state, plagued by internal political factions and crippled by a conservative foreign policy. The fall of the Song seemed inevitable as the Mongols steadily advanced toward their ultimate goal. Even with China on the brink of collapse, Genghis Khan wasn't content. His ambitions turned westward towards Central and Western Asia. Between 1218 and 1220, the Mongol army invaded what is now Turkestan, Uzbekistan, and Iran, targeting the Khwarezm Empire. Genghis had initially sent a diplomatic mission to the Shah of Khwarezm, asking him to submit to Mongol rule, but the Shah had the ambassadors executed. In retaliation, Genghis Khan unleashed an army of roughly 100,000 men, which swept through Persia, forcing the Shah to flee to a remote island in the Caspian Sea. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand fell to the Mongols, and Genghis Khan showed no mercy. Countless cities were destroyed, their inhabitants massacred, and even the sophisticated irrigation systems of the region were deliberately ruined. His brutality earned him infamous titles such as the Evil One or the Accursed One. In 1221, the Mongols extended their campaign into northern Afghanistan, and in 1222, they decisively defeated a combined force of Rus principalities and Kipchaks at the Battle of Khalkha. By the time they returned to Mongolia, the entire Caspian Sea had been encircled by their forces. The Mongols' fearsome reputation spread like wildfire, likening them to a military plague sweeping across Asia. However, Genghis Khan understood that to maintain control over his rapidly expanding empire and to ensure a steady flow of wealth, a stable system of governance had to be established. As a result, many local rulers were allowed to retain their positions of power, provided they remained loyal to the Mongols. Religious tolerance was practiced throughout the empire. International trade was encouraged, and traveling merchants were given the protection they needed to conduct business safely. Genghis Khan died on August 18, 1227, from an illness of unknown origin, possibly stemming from injuries sustained after falling from his horse during a hunting expedition a few months earlier. At the time of his death, Genghis was in northwest China, leading the Mongol siege of the Xixia capital, Zhongxing. His death was kept a closely guarded secret until the city fell, and its inhabitants were slaughtered. Only after this victory was the news of the great leader's passing revealed to his army. Following his death, Genghis Khan's body was taken back to Mongolia for burial. However, the location of his final resting place was kept secret, a decision that has sparked endless speculation throughout history. Medieval sources suggest that his tomb lies near the sacred Birken Kuldun mountain. According to legend, Genghis Khan's son, Ogedai, performed sacrifices in his honor, offering 40 slave girls and 40 horses to accompany his father into the afterlife. The The legacy of Genghis Khan has cast a far longer shadow than the empire he built. He is revered not just as a conqueror, but as a godlike figure and a founding father of the Mongolian people. His veneration, which began during the medieval period, has experienced a resurgence in modern times. Today, Genghis Khan continues to be honored in Mongolia, with special ceremonies held in the nation's capital, Ulaanbaatar, to pay tribute to his enduring influence. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the life of Genghis Khan, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more incredible stories from history.